Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to say thank you to Stock Labs for the opportunity to talk in this amazing event. With this talk, I would like to share what I would have loved to hear before embarking myself on the journey of automation in production environments. I really hope you like it and that you could use all these tips for your daily work. So, let's start. The title of my presentation is The Impact of the Right Architecture for Testing Production Environments. Before starting, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sanchez and I have been working on testing and test automation for the last 10 years. I'm from Spain, but I'm currently living in the Czech Republic. I am working at Honestic as a quality manager. Besides, I am co-founder of two companies, QAMIS Europe, which launched about 2 years ago, and the most recent one, McLean. If you have anything to share with me, I kindly invite you to contact me on Twitter. I want to start talking about Honestic. Honestic is an enterprise with more than 10 years of experience in e-commerce environments, trying to offer to our customers a total solution about their e-commerce projects. We have expert developers in Magento, Salesforce, and Shopify as well, design, marketing, quality assurance, etc. To be able to unify everything you need for your e-commerce in a single company. We are more than 90 open-mind employees now. Honestic is officially based in Valencia. But after COVID, the company adopted remote as a way of working, but the offices, of course, are still open for employees. Anyway, let's start. I would like to start by showing a scenario that most of us here have already experienced. We all probably started in our first company doing manual tests until the day arrived. The boss came to us and said, "Hey boys, we should stop the manual testing and have to start automation in production environments. Every time we're having more and more projects and we barely can handle all of them manually. It takes a lot of time and it's not worthy." Wasn't your first boss sounding like mine? Yeah, sure. So you kindly answer, okay boss, we should analyze how to make these changes to make them as good as possible, right? But your boss answer, well, just you have the Selenium documentation, read it and try to automate something. When you have it, please show it to me. And so, race to survive in the world of automation as you can, but without ever being sure of anything of the consequences that your choices may have. But at that moment, you decide to take the leap and embark on a journey full of problems, but also of joys, conferences, learnings, and adventures, but full of problems. Until one day you decide to share your entire experience with an audience and tell all the things you didn't know 10 years ago and would have liked to know before embarking on the journey. At this point, we are still in the picture situation. We have already won some battles, but there is still a long way to go. We are aware that building our own test infrastructure is not an easy task, and we should strive to start right from the beginning. This will save us a lot of time in the future and will make us focus on what really matters and not on refactoring and fixing small problems. So, let's start with the tips we didn't think of when we developed our first infrastructure. First, the user agent, our best ally, but also the greatest forgotten. As many of you already know, user agent is our signature inside the navigation world. The truth is that we don't used to pay attention at the beginnings, but this suddenly changed when a client noticed and advised us about a new mistake, and that's not good. The tips involving the user agent are very simple, so use it. Define a custom user agent that you will use with all of your clients and projects. Look for something that fits in the recommended standard. It must be descriptive and also have to add a contact email inside. This part is probably the most important. If a client sees your sessions and cannot identify you, they will know how to contact you with this email. Also, we share this information with him. This is really important. With this information, they will be able to filter your navigation, and by doing so, you will not disturb the reality about the navigation of their stores. Also, if you are using remote tools, you will need to find out their IP range to be recognized. Double checking is never a bad idea. If you can use both user agent and IP range, it will be much better. Imagine this customer who performs nearly 1 million tests per year. If our navigation is not filtered in their systems, basically what happens is this. The tool is overestimating that there are about 4 times more visits than you actually have, and this is not a real problem for the company, and probably the marketing department and directors were like this. Oh. But one day the automation will turn off and your visitors will plummet and the party will be over. These errors will be solved by overwriting the user agent with a custom one, unique and with a contact as well, we explained before. Here we put some examples of configuration in the different browsers. A few lines of code that can have major consequences for our clients. We have covered Chrome, Android, Firefox and Safari. In this special case, running a pre-run option where we can execute a hist with the code to override the user agent. Besides, we are working to solve these problems in iOS devices. Okay, next one. Using random products. Perhaps this aspect remain unknown for people who don't work directly in e-commerce. It's very similar what we previously saw, but it deserves a special section in the talk. Do you know what is the most visited product in an online store? Of course, the test product. In order to avoid this mess to happen, there are several simple solutions that can help us. For example, we could put some effort into developing some service that will return random product URLs to us. Or maybe we can even make these products to have special conditions or intelligence, like maybe we need only just a simple product, or maybe a product without stock, or a product with different colors, etc. If we don't want to make this effort, we can request our client to create a test product for us, and here we can, or we should put an amount of $9 million, for example, on it, so nobody will buy it. And if someone would, No problem. Party time again. Okay, let's continue. I've been hearing about this a lot at conferences over the last few years, and even I have been asked for. How do you do full checkout test and process in production? Very simple. We don't. In our case, it was not a good idea. We have done it in the past, but the implications are not worthy doing it in a productive or in production environments. As an alternative, we have some options that may help us. We can ask our client or request for a pre-production environment to run those tests, similar or equal production. This is really important. Same conditions. If we finally decide to do it, we will have to know that we will need parallel processes to delete those purchases and make product returns, etc. Finally, remember not to have card numbers and PIN codes in your code or even in your code repository. Also, payment gateways offer some alternative for testing. For example, Adyen in the documentation provides test cards numbers or even physical test cards and real cards that can be requested if you have the service contracted. And now I want very quickly talk about passwords. It seems obvious, right? But surely more than one of us here have seen or had passwords in the code. We have even pushed them to our repository, for sure. Of course, this was never happened to me, not even by mistake. Yeah, of course. The market has many alternatives that can solve this problem. We will simply have to investigate their APIs and see the best option for our project. Here are some examples in case anyone is interested. We are using now one password, but in the past we tried LastPass during a period of time, and we tried to learn about KeePass and other options in the market. You can search about it because there are a lot of options to every project. Another fundamental aspect of our infrastructure, the different types of devices in which we can run our tests. We have been working with Sauce Labs for some time now, so we have a huge variety of devices at our disposal. That is no longer a stopper for us, but where do we execute them? Desktop, mobile devices, both of them, none. Let's observe please in this image the number of capabilities that we can use to filter the devices that we want to use inside Sauce Labs. We can even request a specific one, for example, an Android with a specific version or concrete iOS version, for example, in an iPhone or iPad. But should we run the test using all these capabilities, really? In our case, we decided to filter the last 2 or 3 versions of each of them. This offers us the newest models, but without forgetting the oldest. Going back to the initial question, at Domestic, we have some e-commerce with more than 90% navigation from mobile devices. Would it make sense to focus on desktop test? Really? Or is it better to increase execution on mobile devices, for example? Really not. We will have to prioritize the executions, or even we should even have different lists with different priorities using, for example, drivers or maybe categories or languages. As you can see in the image, some drivers have more runs than others. Once we have a well organized infrastructure, we can think about doing these kind of things. In this case, we can group the executions by driver and thus see in a specific period of time the errors accumulate in one of them, for example. Or just see which driver has worked better or which one worse. This will allow us to focus on the problem and only on the problem. Okay, let's talk about test categories. This part is perhaps the mm, less critical of all, but we must not forget it. Categorizing tests by type seems silly at first, but it is a fundamental part for the future of our organization. As in the previous point, we can run higher priority tests more frequently. For example, the checks involved in processes such as checkout or user registration must be executed more frequently than the rest than others. And we go with the most important part, and that is the data. This is an essential part when we run a test, and more if we do it with a real device. We are getting a huge amount of information, much more than we think, really. Language, test steps, device information, driver information, categories, iOS options, etc. Probably at the beginning we don't know if we are going to use that information or not, even if we are going to use it now or later. But as we can see in the example, if we improve the report that we are giving to our clients, we will need and use more and more information each time. And what happens if we are not saving it? Nothing special. We won't have history and we can report this information to our client about the past. Therefore, the solution is really simple. We are going to save everything from now. In our case, we choose to generate a blob with all the information that we had at our disposal and store it in a Google Cloud bucket. At the time we started doing this, we weren't sure for what purpose we were going to use the information, but now we do. We are using this information to build McLean, like the image. Sorry. Once we had all the data we needed to use it, we decided to create an API and a database for each honesty client so that they could have that information. After this, the reports for the client and for our development teams had all the information so that the problem could be resolved quickly. Each time the test is executed, it will upload the results with the information to an intermediate system. Then we have two big processes. The process blobs iterates through the blobs in the queue and processes them by downloading the blobs from the bucket and compressing them to obtain the necessary information and storing it. Afterwards, the sync blobs interacts with Google Cloud and adds all blobs from the bucket that haven't been processed yet from the last n days. Maybe 1 day, 2 days, or even an entire year. Or the entire history, maybe. Finally, a slide where you can see the entire workflow from when we run the test to when our clients and teams inside Honesty can see it on the platform. In our case, at McLean. And to finish, I wanted to talk about the UI. Not specifically any user interface, but about the concept of a user interface. If you have the possibility to offer your clients access to a results view, in any case, just do it. It does not matter if it's the most elaborate user interface in the world or something simple, as long as it too allows you to see what's happening. It can be from something simple like here with screenshots and the result with a color code, red for chaos of course, or maybe something more elaborate. But the important thing is that it has to be useful. This is what we have tried with McLean. So, useful information to our customers about the performance of their stores. Trying to show as much information as possible about errors or issues and to keep track and that their resolution is fast and accurate. And that's it. Thank you very much for being here today. It's been a pleasure being here for me, and if someone has any question, please feel free to write in the chat or contact me by on Twitter. Thank you very much again.